Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here with us today. We are here to talk about water, one of the most important natural resources that we take for granted. March 22nd was World Water Day, recognized by the United Nations. This significant day is about conservation of water resources, which is vital for life and for work. Around 71% of Earth is water, yet less than 3% of it is fresh water. We rely on a stable water cycle to meet our needs. Climate change is making things worse, putting us at risk, not having enough water. This shows up as severe floods and droughts worldwide. But here is the good news. Water can also help us fight climate change. It's a big player in climate action. According to scientific reports, tackling climate change relies on fresh water. So plans to fight climate change must consider how much fresh water we have now and in the future. Water is a basic human right. We've got to share it fairly with others. That's why we need to step up and manage water better. We must move beyond just operational water efficiency and adopt a holistic approach. We should consider all stakeholders' needs and dependencies. Water stewardship is a top priority for our stakeholders as well. Both our internal and external stakeholders rank water management among the top 3 priorities. That's why water is a major focus of Koç Group Carbon Transition Program, and we will continue building on our existing efforts. We've got 2 special guests today, Jason Morrison and Laura Weintraub. First, Jason is the president of the Pacific Institute and head of CEO Water Mandate. This is a UN Global Compact initiative promoting international water stewardship, and we joined this initiative 2 years ago as Koç Holding. Jason is also a co-founder of Alliance for Water Stewardship. He previously directed the Pacific Institute Corporate Sustainability Program, studying the policy implications of private sector sustainability initiatives. Unfortunately, Jason couldn't join us live today, so we have a pre-recorded session, which we will show now. Hello, Jason. Thank you for being with us today. As you know, we are, as Koç Holding, a CEO Water Mandate endorser, and this year we kicked off our multi-year water stewardship initiative. And we are very happy that you are today with us to talk about both CEO Water Mandate and water stewardship efforts globally. I want to first talk about climate-related water risks. We know that, of course, there are some environmental, physical risks, but also some social and economic consequences as well. Can you tell us a bit more on what we should expect in the coming years in terms of risks?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. So some of you may have heard the expression, if climate change were a shark, water would be its teeth. And that's because the bite of climate change is typically felt through water. 9 out of 10 natural disasters are water related. Water cycles have always had natural variability. Rarely does a region have a normal rainfall year. But what we are seeing through climate change is that the dry periods are getting drier, the wet periods are getting wetter. These extremes are getting more pronounced around the world, and we can expect to see more of it, more extremes in all of these directions. And I'll give a few examples. So in places like California, the state government has estimated that by 2040, we will have 10% less available supply. And just east of California in the Colorado River Basin, they have measured the driest 20-year stretch in recorded history. And now the states that are included in this basin are going to have to deal with the fact that it was already dry, and now they're going to have less water in the system to support communities and cities throughout the West and their economies. In East Africa, a prolonged drought has led to massive migration across a number of countries, as people need to follow the water in order to have economic livelihood. In Pakistan, on the flood side of the equation, just to use one example, during the 2022 floods, 1/3 of the country was inundated in water. 15,000 people were either killed or injured, and 8 million people were displaced. Over 2 million homes destroyed, 13 ways, almost 400 million acres of agricultural land destroyed or damaged. Those are the types of impacts that any business in Pakistan will have felt, and it will have profound implications for their supply chains or their markets. The effects, and those are the effects on people. The effects of climate change and what it means for water systems and functioning ecosystems is an even scarier issue. And I only have time for one example, but let me perhaps scare you too much. According to research by the global insurance provider Swiss Re, over half of global GDP, so 55% of global GDP, this is about 42 trillion US dollars, is dependent on highly functioning biodiversity and ecosystem services. Think about pollination of bees for orchards, for example, but there are many examples. But according to this research, 1/5 of the countries, 20%, are at risk of their ecosystems collapsing due to a decline in biodiversity and related beneficial ecosystem services. That should be a pretty scary number for anybody interested in a healthy global economy. How all of these issues are going to translate into material business-related risk and opportunity for businesses themselves, that's another talk. But suffice it to say that there's an imperative that water-focused climate adaptation strategies is an imperative for businesses and going forward.
Thank you, Jason. Yes, as you said, this is a scary picture. However, now we are going to talk about the solutions because we know that through CO Water mandate, there is a move from the companies as well to find solutions and scale them. So let's talk about that. We know that you have been with the Pacific Institute for quite a long time. So you were, I think, there when the CO Water mandate was established. Probably you were leading it. I do not know, but I want to hear about you. So can you walk us through that journey? And also, can you talk about what role does CO Water mandate play in water stewardship?
Yes, thank you. So I've been at the Pacific Institute for 30 years, and the Pacific Institute itself is now 36 years old. My own work on the interface between water and the business community started in the early 2000s. And if I were to look back in time, at that moment, what we were really trying to demonstrate through our work was that water is a really important issue that companies should pay more attention to. If you fast forward 25 years, it's pretty clear that the business community now understands that the issue of water is very important and that urgent action needs to be taken. The question is, what needs to be done? And I'll come back to that in a bit. In 2007, after the successful launch of an initiative on climate mitigation called Caring for Climate within the Global Compact, a number of businesses were coming together, encouraging the Global Compact to take action on water or to form an initiative on water. And the Pacific Institute had just finished a report that we had done with Ceres that was focused on water and climate risk for companies. And through those conversations at the time, the Pacific Institute helped organize the first meeting of the CO Water Mandate in early 2008 in New York City on World Water Day. It was in March. So over 15 years ago, the partnership between the Pacific Institute and the Global Compact began, and it's deepened in many ways and expanded. It's been an incredible journey. But for those that aren't familiar with the CO Water Mandate, it is a commitment platform focused on 6 principles or 6 commitments where companies agree to take action in these areas and report annually on their progress. And I'm very pleased to say that those 6 commitments that were launched in 2007 are really now understood to be the central tenets of corporate water stewardship today. Things like working on efficient water use and pollution reduction in your direct operations, engaging upstream, so to speak, in your supply chain and working to push good water management practice in supply chains, taking a basin-wide approach and thinking about the watershed in which your company's water use occurs, engaging with your communities, being a responsible public-private sector voice that shapes public policy around water, working collaboratively through collective action strategies, and then ultimately being accountable by reporting progress over time and being transparent about the practices and performance on water. Those are the commitment areas of the CEO Water Mandate. And back then, those seemed like really pioneering ideas. Today, it's understood to be standard practice. Over the course of that 15 years, we have done a lot of work to try to develop guidance, leading practice guidance on how companies can do these commitments effectively and responsibly. We also have created decision support tools. More recently, we've shifted from this thought leadership work. We haven't moved away from the thought leadership work entirely, but we are adding to that work the real support and catalyzing that's needed for effective on-the-ground action. So the CEO Water Mandate, in partnership with a number of organizations before last year's World Water Conference on the UN Conference on Water in March, began an initiative called the Open Call for Accelerated Business Action on Water. So the International Chamber of Commerce, the Alliance for Water Stewardship, Ceres, Aquafed, and the CEO Water Mandate launched this call. And one of the important aspects of this call is for businesses to work together to have a positive impact on water in at least 100 water-stressed basins where around the world, where companies have an economic interest and where they can work together to have this positive impact by 2030. If you go to the CEO Water Mandate's Water Action Hub, which is a free open source platform, you can see the 100 basins that were listed, as well as who else is interested in working in those basins and what some of the collective action work is. So it's become a lot more active or proactive about the action that's needed on water. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit more if we have time.
Thank you. I think collaboration is key. This basin management approach is also very critical. We are following up very closely your efforts there, and with our work in water stewardship, we will definitely be part of those efforts. I want to ask you, how do you see the maturity of the private sector? You told us some elements of it, but I want to stress that again. How do you see private sector? And can you also talk about what are the most pressing challenges in water stewardship and your personally 3 priorities that are top on your agenda in terms of water stewardship?
Yeah, so thank you. What excites me most today is that I believe that leading businesses are adopting approaches that are finally right-sized to the scope and magnitude of the water challenges we face globally. The introduction of my talk really should have been a little bit scary. It is pretty scary, and we therefore need to work urgently. So the 3 priorities in my mind going forward will be to raise the ambition on water, to accelerate the action, and this will include financial investment, to do so working through collaborative structures. And all 3 of these priorities are being tackled now through a collective action initiative that the CEO Water Mandate launched 4 years ago called the Water Resilience Coalition. And I want to talk a little bit about how this is being approached. So the first piece is about the ambition. And the WRC has pioneered the concept of net positive water impact. And the idea behind net positive water impact is that ultimately a company has an enterprise level framework that can land in water stress basins, focusing on 3 key dimensions of water stress: the water quantity piece, the water quality piece, and water access for people, for safe water, drinking water and sanitation services for the poor, basically. And to have a positive impact on those 3 areas will be somewhat tailored to what the local conditions are. So in some parts of the world, it's really water stress and water availability that's the concern. In other parts of the world, it's the fact that a very large portion of the population doesn't have safely managed sanitation. And in another part of the world, it could be the pollution loads that are in rivers and in lakes that needs to be prioritized. So what this ambition allows for is a global architecture at an enterprise level that can be tailored locally. So that's the first piece around the ambition on water. Accelerating action on water is really about setting goals, time-bound, quantifiable goals that are at scale. So if you think about where companies have come from historically on water, it's been around operational efficiencies. You'll have site level key performance indicators around water intensity or water efficiency, and that's important, don't get me wrong. But really, when you think about what needs to happen at a basin scale to bring about more resilient systems, more to water security in those regions, it won't be done or achieved simply by having companies be efficient at the site level. It will require investments and goals that are shared goals across the businesses that are interested in that region, and even goals that align with public policy objective. And so these sorts of long-term targets of what needs to happen in an area will be the basis for the accelerated action and the increased investment needed to get there. So let me give an example of that. Again, I'll come back to a California example. I had mentioned before that the governor's office had indicated that there's a long-term reduction in available water supply by 10% by the year 2040. And the governor encouraged everybody to do more. It's an all hands on deck moment to address this shortfall. So through this initiative called the California Water Resilience Initiative, we said, okay, well, if that number of 10%, what portion of it is relates to the business community and their footprint, both in their direct operations, but also in their sourcing and their indirect water use through their supply chain. And through that process, we're able to come up with a quantifiable number that is now the goal, the collective goal for the area by 2030. And we're in the process now of developing the roadmap of what are the interventions that are going to be and investments that are going to be most impactful to narrow that gap between now and 2030 and to measure that. So this is around a completely different way to think about how we deal with water from the site level to what our shared ambitions in a particular area. And that's why we think that it's impossible to de-risk a basin unless you start taking this holistic, long-term approach where companies are working together with one another and their counterparts in the public sector and civil society.
Thank you, Jason. These are all very insightful. Thank you very much. Having a holistic long-term approach in the basin, not only in the operations, is critical. That's we understand from you. We've heard many times from you. And as an endorser of CEO Water Mandate, it's also our priority as Koç Holding to have this approach throughout our group. And we will have different initiatives related to that. And we are going to partner with you, of course, continue partnering with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about this issue I clearly care so much about. I appreciate the invitation.
Now we'll have a discussion with Laura Weintraub from Limnotech, a renowned water science and environmental engineering firm from the USA. They work with global Fortune 500 companies on water strategy, aiming to solve global water quality issues. They also partner with initiatives such as the CEO Water Mandate and Science Based Target Network. Laura is a civil engineer and also an environmental engineer with 28 years of experience, who directs Limnotech's corporate water stewardship practice area. She supports companies in strategy development, target setting, replenish project scoping, benefit quantification, and also Alliance for Water Stewardship trainings and certifications. Laura led work for the development of Google's water stewardship program, as well as programmatic support for multiple energy sector companies. So, hello, Laura. Welcome. Thanks for being with us. This year, we are excited to be working together. Today, our participants across various sectors of Koç Group are looking forward to hear your insights on water stewardship. So let me start with my first question. How can businesses adopt water stewardship principles into their operations? And what role do the emerging technologies play here?
Thank you, Ebru. So lovely to be here today, and I'm really honored to be speaking to your amazing organization. So yeah, thanks about the first question about adopting water stewardship principles in operations. At Limnotech, we've had the opportunity to work with many companies along their water stewardship journeys over the last 15 years. For all companies, it is important to start with operations and get your house in order with respect to water management. We see leading companies do a number of important things as part of their water stewardship journey. First, these companies work to understand their water footprint. How much fresh water are they using and from what source water body? This could be a river, a reservoir, or an aquifer under the ground. These companies also learn how much water they use in operations at their sites as compared to water used in their supply chains. I've worked with a number of food and beverage companies that now understand that most of their water use is actually in their supply chain rather than their operations. I've also worked with a paper products company that learned the same thing and has a very large water use in their supply chain, mostly in Brazil. This is important to know at the start of water stewardship journey to help focus efforts as things get going. So thinking about water use at the site though, next, these leaders are also thinking about how they can be better stewards of water at their own locations within their fence line. Of course, efficiency is the most important place to start, but we know that after becoming more and more efficient, there can be a limit. And it can cost, you can hit barriers in terms of cost or in terms of technology. So you have to look to other ways as well. A lot of these leading companies are looking at alternative water supplies in place of fresh water. I've got two really interesting examples that I've learned about. One is a data center in the southern US that uses their treated wastewater from the local city to use in their cooling towers for cooling all of the data centers. And another example is in Ireland. And in this real estate location, the site captures rainwater from the roof where it rains a lot and uses that water for toilet flushing rather than fresh water. This helps reduce how much fresh water they use, but it also helps reduce the stormwater runoff from the site into the sewers and into the waterways. So there's a water quality benefit as well, a double benefit. Next, leading companies are also incorporating a lot of exciting new technologies in how they manage water. There are a lot of new sensors available now that can quickly detect leaks throughout water systems. These leaks may go undetected otherwise without this work. And a lot of these sensors use AI technology, which is really exciting. Another type of innovation that we often see is improvements in on-site water treatment. And what can happen is sites will treat their own wastewater to a quality that is usable within their own systems, and it can be reused, or that water can be shared with other users. One really neat example is Google's large Bayview campus in California. This is actually a net positive water site. And what that means is they're actually using, they're creating more water than they're using on site just by treating that water. They treat all their wastewater and reuse it and actually have extra water to provide to others. Another amazing thing is that part of the water treatment system includes a wetland and a pond that creates habitat for birds and animals in the area. Another example is in India, where we've worked with a food manufacturer they're also treating their wastewater on site and then delivering it to a local farm so that that farm does not have to pump fresh water from the ground. So finally, when we think about water management at the site, another key factor that leading companies are thinking about is recognizing the importance of the human factor when it comes to water management. Implementing this work requires the whole team. With strong teamwork, big things are possible. We worked with one company that was pursuing Alliance for Water Stewardship certification at several sites. They formed a cross-functional water stewardship team at each site, and that team included members from site managers to engineering, environmental health and safety, sustainability, communications, public relations. They worked together to understand how they each touch water in their day-to-day jobs and how they can best work together to improve their on-site water management and also hold each other accountable for being strong stewards of the water they use on their site. So we're very excited to be working with you. We're just getting to know Coach Group, but so far from what we've seen, there's a lot of great examples of good water management to build from. And as more and more sites are engaged, there'll be a lot of opportunity to inspire others across your organization with these practices.
Thank you, Laura. So you are saying that there's a saturation to operational efficiency, and companies should make use of alternative water resources and also digital technologies, which our group companies have already started doing. And you also mentioned the human factor and the importance of cross-functional governance. We noted those. Now, that's for the operations. Going beyond operations, we know that we share our basins with other stakeholders and communities. How should we approach the ecosystem with regards to water stewardship?
Great, thank you. So as Jason mentioned earlier, there are a lot of challenges with water everywhere you look. A lot of those scary stories that he shared. And a great deal of work needs to be done at the basin scale that cannot be done at the site alone. So water stewardship really needs to go beyond site water management, and there's a need to think and act at the basin scale. What I've got on the slide here is a picture of a water cycle, similar to what you would see in Turkey or anywhere in the world. We can see that all water users in the basin are connected by one freshwater system. This includes water use for people in their homes, for agriculture to grow our food, and industries much like the Coach Group companies to produce energy or goods or services. It's also very important to think about the need of fresh water for sufficient and clean fresh water to support our ecosystems, the plants and the animals and the waterways that we depend on that bring so much value to all. So we all share this resource together. Because fresh water is a shared resource, we need to understand the local context of these challenges that can arise. If a basin experiences drought, flooding, or water quality issues, multiple water users can be affected. These challenges are outside of the control of a single water user. Even a site with excellent water management cannot address these basin level challenges alone. So that leads us to really the concept of water stewardship, which again is more broad than just management. As I said, there's a kind of a growth and an expansion of how we think about water. What you see on the screen now is the recognized definition of water stewardship that was established by the Alliance for Water Stewardship many years ago. And there's two important parts of this definition that I've highlighted. First is that companies participate through both site and water basin or watershed actions. Earlier, I shared some stories about operational management. So in addition to that work, leading companies are also looking beyond their fence lines for collective action initiatives that are impactful at a larger basin scale. The second highlighted part is achieving water stewardship through a stakeholder inclusive process. As Jason noted earlier, water users have to work together to help to solve these challenges. First, it's important to learn about stakeholders. Who are your neighbors in the basin? These might be companies, farms, or cities. Then engaging with these important stakeholders is important to start to address shared challenges together. Learning about challenges from their perspective is also important because they share that resource that you depend on. And having strong relationships with external stakeholders can also help increase resilience to these water-related crises and also strengthen and really promote a strong reputation of the various businesses that you may have. So to bring it back to something that's relatable, I have a few collaborative examples I want to share from around the world. First, in Mexico, we're familiar with a group called the Charco Bendito Collaboration. And this includes 9 different food and beverage companies that are working together to conserve over 350 hectares of land. The goal is to improve both the water quality and the quantity in this basin. Key activities of this collaboration include planting native vegetation to increase groundwater levels and reduce soil loss. They're also improving water infrastructure and increasing awareness about the importance of water for healthy communities. And this effort has been going on for a number of years and has gained a lot of interest and already generating good impact. Another example in India that I want to highlight is some of the work that Google has done. First, they've restored multiple lakes in urban areas that provide a better water quality and recreational space for residents. There's also, they have worked with local partners to repair about 20 wells across urban communities in Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Gurugam. And a third part of the work there has been with an international nonprofit called WaterAid, where they're bringing water access to over 9,000 local residents in Hyderabad, including schools and hospitals and other local needs. A third example in Europe is in the Netherlands, where one corporation engaged in water stewardship is partnering with a water technology company. And they're creating an underground storage area that can capture excess rainwater during the wet fall season. And then that water can be used during the dry seasons to help with crop irrigation. These are just a very few examples. At Limnotech, as I said, we've been supporting companies in water stewardship for about 15 years, really, when this idea emerged. And I did a count, and we're familiar with over 1,000 projects similar to these around the world that have been created and implemented. They've only been possible because of the support of leading companies who have a commitment to engage in water stewardship by working in the basin and also working collaboratively with stakeholders. So one other thought here is you may have noticed that in all these exciting examples I shared of water stewardship through partnership and at the basin level, they do help reduce shared water challenges. But these challenges are not just about water scarcity. There are multiple dimensions of water, as Jason noted. We can think about scarcity, flooding, water quality, access, ecosystem needs. So projects like these can really help solve multiple problems. And having this holistic approach to addressing water and supporting value creation is so important, and it's directly in line with the core principles and best practices of water stewardship.
Thank you for the various examples from around the world. These examples clearly show that water is a global issue, yet we need to approach it on a local context. And we need to be aware of the shared water challenges in the community in a certain area. And we need to have a 360% understanding of the water cycle. Now, you shared examples from other companies, institutions. What is your observation on Koç Group so far? What would you suggest as the next steps?
Yeah, thank you, Ebru. So we're so excited to be working with your team. And what I've learned so far is that you're already demonstrating strong leadership by endorsing the CEO Water Mandate and working together with people like Jason and his team. And you're also investing in this important foundational work. When I think about the scale of Koç Group, I think you have a very large opportunity to have tremendous positive impact. From what we've learned so far, some of the group companies within Koç are already demonstrating strong water stewardship leadership within your own industries. Some companies are already implementing operational targets and are looking at innovative strategies to increase efficiency and reduce their freshwater use. Some companies are also engaging with external stakeholders already, municipalities or member associations and working groups for knowledge sharing. So those are really excellent examples and really stepping into a lot of these principles we just talked through. So building on this and learning from each other, I think, is going to be very important as you step ahead. And as you noted, we're just starting our work together. but part of our work will be to develop a group-wide water stewardship strategy that really represents Coach Group at an overarching level. And what we aim to do is provide you with a North Star for all your group companies. It will give you some direction and some possible pathways that you can take to help tackle your water challenges together in a very scientific and credible way. Coach Group has a vast network and can really have transformative power. You have connections in many, many sectors and many different geographies through your operations and through your supply chains. So one thing to think about is that implementation of the water stewardship journey may feel like a small step at first, little seeds that are planted. But if you start something with a clear direction and a North Star in front of you, it can really build to something much, much bigger. I think because of your reach and influence that Coach Group has, I'm convinced that there'll be many opportunities to have a ripple effect and drive a lot of positive change. So I'll just close here and say that we're very excited to begin this journey with you. We're excited to learn more about your businesses and see all the amazing impact that Coach Group can have to help reduce many of these challenges we talked about earlier today, and even go beyond that and provide a lot of positive change and drive that forward.
Thank you, Laura. Likewise, we are also very excited to walk along this journey with you, learn from you, and spread the ripple effect as the largest industrial services group of the country and with a global presence. Thank you very much. Now we can open the session for Q&A. If the attendees, anyone has any questions or comments, can you please share them with us through the Q&A panel? So we have two questions. Maybe we can start with the first one that I see now. Can you share any observations you have made of companies that were just starting their water stewardship journey a few years ago, but now are fully engaged in implementation?
Sure. Yeah. One thing I think about is I can talk about a little bit of a challenge and then also some really positive surprises or really unexpected good outcomes. First, a little bit of a challenge. Water is very complex when we think about the hydrology and the interconnected nature of systems. And as we've talked about the challenges that come with water, they can't be solved by one company alone. So that requires collaboration. Collaboration requires trust, partnership, and communication. And often that doesn't move very fast. It can sometimes be a little slower than one might expect. And that trust piece can also be new territory. Water stewardship is truly a journey. So many companies enter this space with a little bit of fear because it is outside of the comfort zone to engage with stakeholders and try something new. And so stepping outside of that comfort zone and getting started might feel a little bit uncomfortable at first, but know that it's okay. And it's very much normal for most companies starting this type of work, and just accept that that is part of the process and don't lose sight of the value that can come later. When I think about sort of a surprise or a really nice outcome, I've seen companies as they've matured through their water stewardship journey, I think about how, as I said, a small ripple can have a big impact. I remember meeting with a client at their site in India back in 2020, right before the pandemic started, and water stewardship was very new to their team. They thought it was all about water management, being as efficient as they could be, and they were extremely efficient. And they thought they were a little bit skeptical of what I was sharing with them about water stewardship. And they thought they had done all their homework and really the best they could do. But once we talked and learned together, we saw so much opportunity. And I can fast forward to 2024 and just note that this company has grown their water stewardship program at a very steady and impactful pace. They're investing in many projects that have direct impact to the people and the ecosystems that rely on fresh water right in their own communities. So now these same team members, when we talk to them, they proudly showcase these successes, and they're really eager to keep going with great enthusiasm. So I think knowing that it might feel small or a little confusing at first, in a short amount of time, a lot of positive change can happen.
Thank you. We have a second question. How can we implement projects in the basins when there are other private companies operating there, since they are not within our control? I think this is a good question to start with.
Yeah, that's good. Again, that collaboration is so key, and it's a lot about the network and understanding what other partners are in the basins where you operate. There's a lot of project implementers, nonprofit organizations, cities, and there's often collaborative frameworks that can work together to identify these joint opportunities. So I think learning who your stakeholders are is a first step, and then explaining to them that you have interest to invest and to provide value through your own work, and see what opportunities arise, and understand which one of those opportunities are a good fit with your program and with your goals and your North Star. So it's true that you can't control what other companies do, but together you can find challenges and possible solutions in the basins where you work.
Thank you. Now we have a very specific question. Is that possible to share Limnotech experience about internal water price calculations, which we also have in our scope?
Yes. So we will be exploring that a little bit later as we work with you. I think the price on water is a challenge for many organizations, because I know in many locations the actual cost of water is not very much, but when you think about the embedded risk with water and associated embedded cost, it is important. So when we look at the price of water, we like to think about not just the direct fee that you would pay to pump the water into your site, but also what would be the potential cost of not having that water in place with you. So I don't know if we'll go into great detail right now, but I think as we explore our work with Coach Group, we'll be looking at what you've established so far, and looking at water financial impacts of water risk associated with various types of risk that can come across your company.
Thank you. I will continue with another question, then we have a comment. So what do you believe are the long-term implications of unresolved water contamination issues?
That's a big question. As we all know, water quality, it's about having enough water, but it's also about having water that's in an adequate quality and clean enough to be used for all the needs. So I think this is a very large question, and it's not always within a single company to try to solve all these contamination issues. It's something that needs to be understood as you use water and understand what the challenges are. There can be opportunities through a water stewardship program to help improve water quality in a source body that you're reliant upon. Sometimes there's water quality treatment wetlands that can be put in place, or water treatment systems. So I think there's opportunity. As far as the long-term implications, I think there'll always be challenges to face as a community. I think looking only to the regulatory space to fix those problems is narrow. And what we're finding is the value of water stewardship is it's not just relying on those regulatory or the government agencies to fix these water quality problems, and really water challenges in general. But by collaborative action of working with the private sector, you can have more impact and more scale to help address really any challenge that's out there.
Thank you, Laura. We have a comment here. I want to read that. I just joined to this great coach family with Beko Europe acquisition, and I'm really happy to hear that these topics are kept in great consideration. Not a question, just a consideration. Thank you very much for this comment. This motivates us definitely. I think we answered all questions. We don't have any other questions. Thank you, Laura, again. Looking forward to working with you and the team. And thanks to everyone for the great questions and the comment. Today we heard from both our speakers how collaboration is key and why and how we must move beyond operational efficiency. This webinar is just the start of our journey to better water stewardship. Thanks again for joining and looking forward to preserving freshwater resources and amplifying our positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you.